All right, good morning, everybody. And this is our second installment of my review of the 2 classroom practices that we did on informal emails. This is the second email on your experiences at Terrific Bookshop sale. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start to highlight the contextual information that I'm going to use in my first paragraph later. Always remember that contextual information provided to you should be included in your first paragraph to set the scene for your email and to give the background information that's necessary, all right? So after I look at the contextual information, I will skip the pictures for now and go straight to the task, okay? Then I'm going to look at you are the boy in the striped shirt. So this is your identity, meaning that I'm going to need to give myself a name because there are no names provided here. So I'm just going to call myself Tim, right? Tim. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to indicate Tim as the identity of the striped shirt boy, right? I'm going to be Tim, right? This is me, right? And my friend. Next, I'm supposed to write an email, right, to my cousin, okay? So email is going to be informal. Why? Because of the audience of my cousin, right? So I'm going to give my cousin a name. I'm going to call my cousin John, right? And the purpose statement is to tell him about your experience at Terrific Bookshop. So this is your purpose, all right? So your purpose is to inform him or to tell him, since this is an informal email. Your audience is John, your cousin, and the context is an email which takes on an informal tone simply because of the audience being your cousin, someone close to you with whom you have a relationship, right? So next, let's go into the 6 content points which will guide our identification in the picture. 2 types of discounts, all right? So this is grouped as 1 point, okay? Because the 2 different types of discount here are perceived as 1 point. Why your friend could not find the books, right? And this is my point number 2. 2 points about the situation that's at the bookshop, that's 3 and 4. How you felt, that's 5. And what advice you have for your cousin who presumably is going to visit this sale after you've written this email to him or not, right? So what advice you have for your cousin, and you are supposed to combine these 6 content points together. So let's go and look for the content points one by one, right? So 2 types of discounts, right? So obviously this is in the picture here, 3 for the price of 2 and 30% off. So this is point number 1, right? Both of these refer to point number 1. Okay, why your friend could not find the books, right? And over here, we find that the books are in a mess and it is too crowded. All right, so I'm going to put that down under my point number 2. The reason why he could not find the books. 2 points about the situation, all right? Let's see. What are the 2 points? Okay, let's see. Okay, it's over here. Look at the long queues at the cashier, right? So my point number 3 and 4 are found here. So it is very crowded and there are long queues at the cashiers, right? So this is the situation that is in the bookshop and how that made you feel, right? Over here, it was stuffy in the bookshop, right? Okay, I could hardly breathe, right? So the stuffiness and the fact that you could hardly breathe is precisely how you felt, okay? So remember that you are the boy in the striped shirt, so you need to write everything from your perspective, all right? Finally, what advice you have for your cousin? Okay, so over here, right, you are going to write an email to your cousin to inform him about your experience. So about our experience at the bookshop. Now, this part is a bit of a question mark because it does not really answer the question about the advice that you would have or would give to your cousin, right? This is where you can come in and come up with your own interpretation of the situation, right? So there are any number of possible responses to point 6. One could be to avoid this sale because of the fact that the books are in a mess and it's difficult to find and it's very crowded and it's very stuffy, right? So that's one possible advice that you could give to your cousin, to not come for this sale at all, or perhaps you might advise your cousin to come at off-peak hours, right? To come in off-peak hours so that there aren't that many people in the sale, and therefore you will not experience the stuffiness, the crowds, and the chaos, right? But I would think that between these two, the advice to avoid this sale would be a better choice, because given the combination of the factors where you cannot find the books you are looking for, there are huge crowds and long queues, and the fact that there is insufficient ventilation causing stuffiness and breathlessness, this would all point to the fact that you would not recommend this sale to your cousin, right? So I would go with the point of, let's avoid this event. Now, in very rare cases, informal emails will require that you come up with your own interpretation and responses. And that is what makes this email slightly more challenging than the previous one, right? You have to come up with an interpretation of the situation and your conclusion of the matter, which is to give advice to your cousin not to come for this particular sale or event. All right, good. Okay, so now let's just double check. We have our 6 content points clearly demarcated. We have a clear audience, we have a clear purpose, and we know that the tone of this email is informal. Now let's begin this. Now, before that, let's just check if there are any dates. There don't appear to be any dates provided, so I'm just going to write today's date, right? Remember, when there are no dates provided anywhere in the email, you can write today's date. So today is the 1st of May, and I'm just going to go ahead and write 1st May 2024, right? And the person I'm writing to, right, is my cousin John, right? Remember, I'm Tim, and I'm writing to John. So I leave a line after the date, and then I scribe in my salutation, Dear John, right? Remember not to use titles like cousin. Don't say dear cousin, right? You can just write Dear John, who is your cousin, right? You have named your cousin John, right? You can begin with a polite phrase, how are you? Similar to what we wrote in the previous email, right? And then you can go straight into the context, right? My friend and I, okay? And then I can look at the contextual information here, right? Saw that there was a sale at Terrific Bookshop. Okay, so this is the context right on top here. You were walking by and then you saw that there was a Terrific Bookshop sale. And then you remembered that your cousin, the person you are writing to, told you about the sale and he wants to come next week, right? So I'm going to write that in as well, okay? I remembered that you told me about this sale and that you are going for it next week. All right, so next week is still applicable because this is the day of your experience, right? I would like to tell you about my experience there. Okay? So this is slightly lengthier than normal, but it still contains all of the components, right, that we are familiar with. This is your standard polite phrase, okay? This is your contextual information, right? Everything here, I remembered that you told me about the sale and you're going to come for it this week. This whole section is the context, and tell you about my experience there is my purpose statement. Notice again that I'm just borrowing the phrasing and the sentence structures given to me in the text, okay? Over here, right, write an email to your cousin to tell him about your experience at Terrific Bookshop, right? I would like to tell you about my experience there, right, at Terrific Bookshop at the sale, right? So now I'm ready to go into my 6 content points, right? So very quickly, right, I'm going to begin with the first point, right? The 2 types of discounts, all right, and I'm going to just check at the bookshop are a 2, 3 for the price of 2 offer, okay, as well as a 30% discount on your purchase. All right, so I just want to check over here, that's correct. Okay, so 3 for the price of 2, 30% off, right? This is my point number 1, right? So check with point number 1. Point number 2, why your friend could not find the books that he wanted, right? So there's no need to give my friend a name, but if you want to, you can, right? So over here, I'm going to talk about how the books are in a mess, right? And your friend cannot find what he wants. My friend could not find the books he wanted because they were all in a mess. Okay? So I'm building up to the advice that I'm going to give to my cousin by telling him about the situation. First of all, the books were in a mess. That's point number 2, right? And then 2 other points about the situation, right? It was very crowded and there were long queues at the cashier is what I'm going to include next. There were also long queues, all right, this at the cashier, and it was very crowded in the bookshop. Right, why did I arrange it in this manner instead of going with the crowd and then the long queue? Because I want to link from the fact that it's very crowded to the fact that I could not breathe, all right, or I felt breathlessness, which is point number 5, right? Okay. It was very stuffy and I could not breathe properly. Okay, as y'all can see, I'm building up my points, right? So, could not find the books he wanted because they were all in a mess. There was long queues at the cashier. It was very crowded. And then it was very stuffy and therefore you could not breathe. Are all my points. So my point number 1 here. Okay, my point number 2 here. My point number 3 here. My point number 4 here. My point number 5 here. Right? And then therefore, it leads you very nicely to what advice you would have for your cousin, right? So you can just follow the exact format. I would advise you, right? So the word advise is spelled with an S and not C because advice is a noun, advise is a verb, right? So I would advise you not to come for this sale because of all these factors. Okay, so you summarize all of the negative factors by referencing it as all these factors. All of these are factors that negate your recommendation for your cousin to come. So therefore, you are advising your cousin not to come for this sale. This is your advice, okay? And you have to phrase it clearly so that it's visible to the examiner that you have considered all the factors and you've come to this conclusion, right? And that's very important, and it's very crucial to the outcome of your email's effectiveness, right? Because all of what you've just said leads to the point and conclusion that you just made, which is that this is not a good experience for your cousin to be a part of, and therefore you are recommending that he not attend this particular event, this particular sale, all right? So let's end off. I hope that this will help you decide if you want to come for this terrific bookshop sale. I will see you at our next family gathering, right? Because you are cousins. So that is one way you can end this email, by saying that I will see you at our next family gathering, right? Since you are cousins. And again, let me highlight, I hope that this will help you decide, is the call to action or the end purpose, right? So this is the end purpose statement. Okay. See you at our next family gathering is the end polite statement, right? It's kind of like see you soon, I will see you soon, right? But in this case, I'm indicating my relationship to my cousin by mentioning the family gathering. That's a good piece of contextual information. Not necessary, but a good icing or cherry on top of the cake to make it look better, right? So, yours sincerely, okay, and which puts us very nicely at the end, right? Tim. Or you could even have your cousin, right, to further explain and cement, right, the relationship that you share. You could end off with your cousin, right, Tim. Right, so this is, in a nutshell, right, a complete, full-marked response to this rather challenging task of writing an informal email to your cousin. And why this is challenging, I've outlined at various points in this video, and I hope that this is helpful to all of you. Please review this, okay? You may freeze your screen, pause it, and take a look at the overview as you go through with this response. Do not worry, I will print the response for this and the previous email for all of you tomorrow, but do take notes, do look at this email in comparison with your own in preparation for our next NWA. All right, have a good day. I hope you're enjoying your holidays, and I'll see you back in school tomorrow on Thursday.